Hey there, it's us at the City of Winston-Salem. We know you're busy building great things, and we appreciate the work you do. But let's talk about something that can make or break a job site: erosion control. When soil washes off your site, it doesn't just disappear. It goes into storm drains and straight into our rivers. You might be surprised to learn that sediment, or dirt, is the #1 pollutant of our waterways in North Carolina. You might be wondering, why is sediment considered a pollutant if it's dirt, and dirt is already found in the environment? Sediment in our creeks and rivers affects the ecosystem in several harmful ways. It blocks sunlight to plants, prohibiting them from photosynthesizing and producing oxygen in the water. It disrupts reproductive cycles in aquatic animals by smothering fragile eggs that need good oxygenized water flow to stay healthy. It raises the temperature of the water, making it unlivable for sensitive species. It clogs the gills of aquatic animals, making it hard for them to breathe. When the plants and animals in rivers disappear, it influences land, too. The food chain in Winston-Salem depends on those species. The base of our food chain, plants, feed the aquatic insects. The aquatic insects are food for birds, frogs, toads, fish, and salamanders. The frogs, toads, and salamanders eat insects that we don't want, like mosquitoes, and they're food for lots of birds, snakes, and turtles. When the rivers are full of sediment, it can affect the entire ecosystem in Winston-Salem. We wouldn't have as many birds at our bird feeders, or salamanders under the leaves, or turtles on logs, and we'd have a lot more mosquitoes in the summer. Luckily, there are a lot of things that contractors like you can and should do to make sure our streams stay healthy and clear. Now let's talk about other types of land disturbances that are not single-family dwelling construction related. If a developer is conducting land disturbing activity that is not related to single-family residential developments, they may need a grading erosion control permit if the intent of the activity does not meet an exemption outline in our ordinance. Exemptions per our ordinance include agricultural activities, forestry activities, mining, land disturbing activities that are funded with state or public funds or are on public-owned property like utilities, and during emergencies that are essential to protect human life. Land disturbances that are not single-family dwelling related that are less than 10,000 square feet of land disturbed. These developments do not need a grading erosion control permit from the City of Winston-Salem. They do need basic erosion and sediment control measures, like silt fences with stone outlets, seed and mulch, and stone entrances. These measures are needed to contain the sediment within the footprint of disturbance and prevent off-site sedimentation. Land disturbances that are not single-family dwelling related that are more than 10,000 square feet but less than 1 acre of land disturbed. For these developments, developers need to obtain a grading and erosion control permit from the City of Winston-Salem. The developer will need to submit a professionally designed and sealed erosion control plan when applying for the grading erosion control permit. The plans will need to be designed and sealed by North Carolina licensed professional engineer, land surveyor, architect, or a landscape architect. This needs to be submitted to the City of Winston-Salem erosion control staff and approved before any land is disturbed. The developer will be given grading erosion control fee payment instructions by the erosion control inspector. Once the grading erosion control permit is paid and issued, the developer will need to schedule a pre-construction meeting with the erosion control inspector. The developer will install all initial erosion and sediment control measures as per the approved plan and then begin grading activities and site work. Developers should always keep a copy of the approved plans on site. If the initial erosion control inspection is successful, the erosion control inspector can approve the initial inspection associated with the building permit if applicable. Land disturbances that are not single-family dwelling related that are 1 acre or more. For these developments, developers will need to obtain a grading erosion control permit from the City of Winston-Salem. The developer will need to submit a professionally designed and sealed erosion control plan when applying for the grading erosion control permit. The plans will need to be designed and sealed by a North Carolina licensed professional engineer, land surveyor, architect, or a landscape architect. This needs to be submitted to the City of Winston-Salem erosion control staff and approved before any land is disturbed. Once the erosion control plans are approved, the developer will be required to obtain the NCGO1 Certificate of Coverage from NC Demler. The developer will then be given grading erosion control fee payment instructions by the erosion control inspector. Once the grading erosion control permit is paid and issued, the The developer will need to schedule a pre-construction meeting with the erosion control inspector. Next, the developer will install all initial erosion and sediment control measures as per their approved plan, and then begin grading activities and site work. Developers should always keep a copy of the approved plans on site. If the initial erosion control inspection is successful, the erosion control inspector can approve the initial inspection associated with the building permit if applicable. Now let's go over some sediment and erosion control measures. These are the basic minimum measures you need to install at any construction site where land is being disturbed to make sure that sediment doesn't flow off-site. Silt fences. Silt fences are your first easy line of defense. The silt fencing should be attached to steel T-posts with zip ties. Steel T-posts should be placed every 6 feet along the fencing. The bottom 12 inches of the silt fence fabric should be placed in an 8-inch deep by 4-inch wide excavated trench. The trench should be backfilled with soil and compacted. Ensure the ends of the silt fence return upslope enough to prevent water and sediment from flowing around the edge of the silt fence. Install stone outlets where water flow is concentrated. The height of the stone outlets should be 18 inches high and 4 feet wide. The stone should overlap with the silt fence by 1 foot on each side. Inspect your silt fence weekly and after each rain event over 1 inch. Do a perimeter walk to make sure water isn't going under the fence anywhere. Replace any sections of the silt fencing if it becomes damaged. Accumulated sediment must be removed once it reaches half the height of the silt fence fabric or stone outlet. Skimmer basins. Standard skimmer basins should be placed in the lowest area of your site to capture water and sediment drainage. Skimmer outlets slowly release clean water from the surface of the pond while the sediment settles. The skimmer basin is a designed measure that must be sized appropriately for the given drainage area it is treating, so it's crucial that the basin is installed according to the specifications in the approved erosion control plans. Stabilize all basin slopes and embankments immediately after installation. You can do this with vegetation or erosion control matting. Direct all site drainage into the basin above the baffle sections. Diversion berms that direct water into the basin should convey drainage non-erosively. If this isn't possible at your site, you'll need to install a slope drain conveyance into the basin. Install a skimmer outlet in the bottommost section of the basin, past all the baffles. The skimmer outlet should drain onto a riprap dissipator pad below the silt fence. An emergency spillway for larger storm events must be installed with a liner. The liner must be trenched into the embankments of the basin and extend to undisturbed ground. Emergency spillways should not discharge into silt fences or stone outlets. Basins can accumulate a substantial amount of sediment. Remove accumulated sediment from the basin once it reaches 50% capacity or sooner. You can do this by excavating. You can reuse or properly dispose of the sediment, but make sure it's never dumped in a stream or wetland. Baffles can deteriorate or get clogged with sediment, so you'll need to replace them if they begin to lose effectiveness. Ensure the skimmer does not get clogged with debris. It should be able to completely drain down the basin within 2 to 3 days. Check the sides of the embankments often for erosion and stabilize as needed with mats or vegetation. Stone entrances. Stone entrances must be installed at every construction site. They knock dirt off the tires of vehicles before they exit the site and enter the roadways. Install geotextile fabric as the base to separate the gravel from the soil below. Stone entrances must be comprised of 2 to 3 inch wash stone. They should be at least 50 feet long or extend to the structure, and be at least 12 feet wide, with a turning radius on each side at the road to ensure vehicles don't leave the stabilized area when entering or exiting. Sediment may build up on top of the wash stone. If this happens, scarify the entrance to remove the sediment and debris and then top dress the wash stone with new material to maintain its effectiveness. For any sediment tracked off-site, immediately wash or sweep the sediment from the road. Do not wash or sweep it into storm drains or directly into any creek. Seed and mulch. Seed and mulch locks down the soil and keeps your site in compliance. Apply fast-growing native grasses suitable for the season and cover them with straw or mulch to protect the seeds and retain moisture. Time planting to within 7 days of completing grading activities on perimeter areas and slopes steeper than 2 to 1. Planting should be within 14 days of completing grading activities on all other areas of the project. Vegetation is nature's best erosion control measure. It holds soil in place, filters out pollutants, and the roots act like a sponge to reduce the amount of total stormwater runoff. Vegetation should be established wherever possible. Geotextiles and mats. Geotextiles and mats hold soil in place. They should be put in areas with steep slopes or swales. They are made with biodegradable materials like straw, jute, coconut fibers, or mulch. They are porous enough to allow plant growth and thick enough to protect the soil. And don't forget, check your controls weekly and after every rain event over 1 inch. Fix what's failing before it causes a problem. Best practice dictates that all developers should keep records of your inspections. Here in Winston-Salem, a procedure is in place for when construction sites haven't installed or aren't properly maintaining their erosion control measures. Before we get into details, it's important to state that a notice of violation, or an NOV, or a civil penalty can be issued at any time if site conditions warrant it. Factors that determine the escalation of enforcement are off-site sedimentation, citizen complaints, if the developer has been negligent with maintaining the erosion control measures, and prior compliance records of the developer. These are the guidelines we follow to make sure sites stay in compliance. We'll go through each step in more detail. A City of Winston-Salem erosion control inspector conducts regular inspections of their sites. After each inspection, they document their findings in an inspection report. If there are no violations found, regular inspections continue. If there are violations found, the report will show required corrective actions and a deadline in which to have them completed. Depending on what needs to be done, the deadline usually ranges from 7 to 14 calendar days. Within 3 days after the deadline has passed, the inspector will conduct a follow-up inspection to ensure compliance. If the corrective actions have been completed and no other violations were found, no further action will be taken and regular inspections will continue. If the corrective actions have not been completed, a notice of violation, or an NOV, may be issued. The violations and required corrective actions will be listed in the NOV and another compliance deadline will be established. After the deadline has passed, the erosion control inspector will go out to conduct a follow-up inspection within 3 days. If the corrective actions have been completed and no other violations are found, the NOV will be closed out and regular inspections will continue. If the corrective actions have not been completed, a notice of continued violation, or an NOCV, may be issued. Once an NOCV is issued, a stop work status will be placed on all applicable building permits until the site is back in compliance. When the NOCV is issued, it will list the violations and the required corrective actions. The inspector will conduct a follow-up inspection within 14 days of the issuance of the NOCV. If the corrective actions have been completed and no other violations are found, the NOCV will be closed out, the stop work status will be lifted, and regular inspections will continue. If the corrective actions have not been completed, the inspector will issue another inspection report listing the violations and required corrective actions. The inspector will assign a compliance deadline of 14 days from the date of inspection. The inspector will conduct a follow-up inspection after the new compliance deadline. If the corrective actions have been completed and no other violations are found, the NOCV will be closed out, the stop work status will be lifted, and regular inspections will continue. If compliance is still not met, a civil penalty may be imposed. Civil penalty. A civil penalty is a fine determined by the severity, duration, environmental impact, and any prior offenses related to the violations. In this video, we learned how proper erosion and sediment control protects our water and keeps your projects running smoothly. The most important things to remember are to properly install and maintain erosion and sediment control measures, like silt fences, skimmer basins, stone entrances, seed and mulch, and geotextile fabrics, and to check these controls weekly and after each rain event greater than 1 inch. Let's build responsibly, together! If you have any questions, please contact the City of Winston-Salem Erosion Control and Floodplain Program Manager. Thanks for watching!